And in this video, guys, we're going to learn how to use arrays inside our C program. So basically, guys, we can declare variables to hold single element or single value inside our C program. So for example, like this, age or int age, and then we could assign it to a value 5, for example, like this. So this particular variable will hold the value 5 or a single value 5, and then it's going to assign to the variable age. Now, what if we want to store like 50 series of values? Like there are 50 age that we want to save. For example, there are like 50 persons that we want to save the ages. Then this particular declaration and statement will not suffice because we're going to like declare it one by one. So for example, int age 2 and then 6 and then int age 3 equals 7 and int age 4 was like 10 and so on. So basically, guys, this is not a good programming practice to declare multiple variables or multiple variables to hold a single set or single type of data. So that's why we need the capability of an array. So basically, guys, the array is a data structure in C programming which can store a fixed size sequential collection of elements of the same data type. So in this case, guys, we're just collecting and saving the same data type of data, which is int. Now, what we can do here is we can define an array, and then we could set the length. Say, for example, we want to save 50 ages, right? And then we could save the age into that particular array. So let me show you an example. So this is how you can create an array inside your C program. So basically, the first thing is you have to specify the type of your data that you want to save in that particular array, and then the array name. So basically, this is just like the variable name. So you have to label your container, and then of course you have to specify the type of data that you want to save in this particular array, and then you have to add the square brackets, and this signifies that this particular variable is an array. And then inside this particular square bracket, you can declare the size, or specify the size or how many values that this particular variable could hold. Okay, so in a typical C program, you could do it like this. So for example, the type is int, right? And then you could say ages or age, right? So this is the array name, and then this square brackets, and then you have to specify the size. So for example, 5. So you want to collect 5 values or 5 age of 5 persons. Okay. So again, this is the type int. You have to specify the type, and then you have to specify the array name, the variable name, and then of course square brackets, and then the size of your array, or basically the amount of values that this particular array could hold. So after this, you could say equals, and then you could specify the array or the elements of your array. So for example, we could take all these values 5, 6, 7, and 10. So 5, 6, 7, and 10. And so for example, because our array contains or should contain 5 elements, you could add another one here, for example 8 or something. Okay, so again, this is how you can create an array of um, values. So int is the data type, and then of course we have the array name, and then square brackets with the size 5. For example, your array should be 5, and then equals, and then the curly braces, open and close curly braces, and then the actual element value. For example, in this particular statement, we have 5, 6, 7, 10, and 8. So that's how you can initialize an array in C program. Now, you can access this particular or this elements or these values by using what we call index. So in C programming or any other programming with arrays, you could access the values by using index. So this index is based, zero based. It means that it will start with 0. Okay, so meaning if you want to access the value 5, so you have to use 0 index. Okay, this will be 0, and then this will be 1, this will be 2, this will be 3, and this will be 4. So again, if you want to access or get the value of this particular element, you have to use the 0 value of your index, and then 1 for the 6, 2 for 7, 3 for 10, and 4 for 8. So let me show you that how that works. So for example, you want to display the value 6. Okay, so all you have to do is use the printf statement, and then double quotes, and then %d, the format specifier for our integer values, and then comma, of course, and then we could use the name of our um, uh, what do you call this, array, so ages, and then we could specify the square bracket, and then the index of the element that we want to use. So for example, 6. So we want to use the index 1 for that to be able to get the value of 6. So let's try this. Build and run our program. So as you can see, the output is 6. As you can see here, 6. Right? Now, if you want to get the value 10, you have to use the index 3 for that, because as I've said, the value is equivalent to the index 3 of our particular array. So build and run our program, and it should output the value 10, which sits on the index 3 of our array. So that's how you can access the value from our array. Now, so for example, you want to change the value of this array, right? So we have here 5, 6, 7, 8, or 5, 6, 7, 10, and 8. And then if you want to change the value of, so for example, this one, 5, the first element, all you have to do is specify the index also. So ages, and then the index is 0. So then equals the value, for example, 11, semicolon, that signifies only this long. So ages. So for example, we want to display this. What will be the value of our index 0? So we could test that by using the printf statement, and then instead of 3, you could specify the value 0 or index 0 here. So let's try this. Build and run. And as you can see here, instead of 5, the initial value of our uh, index 0, it returns 11 because we assign it, or we modify it by using the element or index 0 equal to the 11, which is that's why we are getting the 11 value here. Now this is particularly useful, guys, or if you want to work with the array, one of the best structure or the best statement that you could use to iterate the array is by using the for loops or loops inside our C program. So we could say this here, for example, for. So we're gonna use the for loop statement here, and we could specify, for example, int index equals to 0. We want to start with 0 because as I've said, the index of our array is 0 base. It will start with the 0 number. Okay, so index equals 0 and then semicolon, and we're going to say here index less than the actual value of our array, or I mean size of our array. So 5, less than 5. So another semicolon and then index plus plus. Okay. And inside the for loop, we could display the element of our array. So we could use this printf statement, and then we could use the index variable here, and then change this. We could say index equals %d, the format specifier, and then we could say equal to %d, and then of course the actual value of our array index. So in here we could specify the index. Okay, so it should display the index, current index, and then it should display the actual value of that particular index. So we could build and run our program. Let me add first the \n or new line scape sequence, new line, and then it should display this particular output. So at index 0, we have the value 11. At index 1, we have the value 6, right? Index 0 is 11 because we already modified our array, specifying the array or index 0 should be equal to 11. And then at index 1 equal to 6 right here. Index 2 should be equal to 7. Index 3 is 10. Index 4 is 8. Okay, so that's how easy for us to access and change the value of our array, and that's how we can define our single dimension or one dimension array inside our C program. And in this video, guys, we're going to talk about multi-dimensional arrays in our C program. So from the previous tutorial, we have learned how to use the basic array. So we have implemented one-dimensional array. We trying to display the contents of an array by using the for loop. And of course, we declare and initialize one-dimensional array from the previous tutorial. Now, as I've said, from this tutorial, we're going to learn how to work with multi-dimensional array. So basically, guys, multi-dimensional array works like the same with the one-dimensional array, but the difference is that it contains the array contains a set of arrays. So in C programming language, it will allow us, or it allows us to use multidimensional arrays, and the declaration or multidimensional declaration for that is by using the type, of course. As I've said from the previous tutorial, if you want to store multiple values, you have to use arrays, and in order for you to declare an array, you have to specify the type of that particular array. So you have to specify the type, and then of course the name of the array, and then you have to specify the size here. So for example, size. Now this is good for one-dimensional array. So you have to specify the type, the name, and of course the size of your array. Now comes the multi-dimensional array or two-dimensional array. So you could do it like this. So size 2, and then this is the size 1. So this is how you declare multi-dimensional array or two-dimensional array inside our C program. So the type, of course, you don't want to forget that the size of, or I mean, the type of the value that you want to save in this particular array. So, and then the name, and then of course the size 1, and then the size 2. Now, if you want to create three-dimensional array, you could do it like this, size 2, I mean size 3. So you have square brackets for your size 1, square brackets for your size 2, and square brackets for your size 3. So again, this is how you can declare your multi-dimensional array. But the simplest form of multi-dimensional array is by just specifying two sizes. And basically, guys, this will represent the columns and rows of your array or multi-dimensional array, because multi-dimensional array works like a table. So size 1 will be your um, number of rows, and the size 2 will represent the number of columns. So let's try this. Let's try to declare and initialize multi-dimensional array. So following this particular declaration type. So the first thing is, of course, the type. So int, and then we could say here a, or a variable name a. This is the name of our array, multi-dimensional array. And then of course we could specify the size for our rows. Say for example 3 right there, and then the size of our columns or number of columns. So that's basically like 4, and then you could initialize this by using the equal sign and then open and close curly braces. So inside this curly braces, we could declare or initialize the values for our rows and columns. As I've said, multidimensional arrays are, composed of arrays right there. Okay, so we could add array of values right here. This will represent the row 1 of our array. So like for example 0, 1, and then 2, and then 3. Okay, so again, this is for initializing the row, initializing the row index by 0. Okay, so we could access this by using the index 0. Okay, and for example, basically, we declare it here like 3, so we need to add more arrays to this. So open and close curly braces, and another one to make it, the length is 3. So in here we could display or add 4, and then 5, and then 6, and then 7. Okay, and then the other row will have 8, then 9, and then 10, and then 11. Okay, so basically we now have declared and initialized our multi-dimensional array. So the 3 here represent this rows, 3 rows, and as you can see here we have declared 4 columns. So it should count, or I mean, the columns start from this 0, 4, 8, and then 1, 5, 9, 2, 6, 10, 3, 7, 11. So this will, the 4, the 8, and the 0 represents the column 0. And then 1, 5, and 9 represents column 1. So why this is representing column 0? That's because our index is, um, is 0 base, or meaning it will start counting from 0. So this will be the column 0, the column 1, the column 2, and the column 3. Okay, and of course, um, we could try to display the value of this. We could access the values of our multi-dimensional arrays by using the indexes of
the columns and rows. So for example, we want to change the value of um, the values that we could get from the row 2 and um, column 3. So basically the value of or the value that we could get from our array index 2 and 3 is 11 because this is the row 2 and this is column 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So we get the 11 or the value 11. So if we want to change this to something like 8, so we could do it or assign a value to this by 8. So it should display 11 or I mean 8 instead of 11. So we could try that. So printf and then percent %d, which is the format specifier for our int value. So we could specify the array index 2 and then index 3. So if we try to compile and run our program, we should get now the value 8, value 8, as you can see here. That's because we already modified the value inside the array of index 2 and 3. So let's try to comment this and then compile and build our program. And as you can see, we're getting 11. That's because that's the initial value of the array index 2 and 3. Now we could use array, or we could use loops here to access and change the value of our array or multidimensional array. And of course, because we're using multidimensional array, we could also use nested loops to change and access the values of our array. So, say for example, we could declare for loop here, and this is, for example, int and then row equals 0, and then our row is less than, or yeah, row is less than um, like for example 2 or 3, okay, and then row plus plus. So basically we're iterating from 0, 1, and 2 because we only have like 3 rows, but we're starting from 0, so that's making it like the value of our row should only be within 2, not 3. That's why we're using single, or um, less than 3 right here. And then, of course, we could make another loop for our column. So int column and then equals to 0, and then um, column is less than 4, and then we're going to say here column plus plus, okay. And then of course we could use this particular printf statement to display the values of our array. So percent %d, we could use here the array name, which is a, because we're using the array name a. So a, and then um, we are going to specify here the columns and rows. So percent %d, and then here percent %d equals percent %d. So inside here we could specify the row and then the column and of course the value of that particular row and column. Okay, so this will be row and of course this will be column. Okay, so again we're just trying to get the value of inside our array represented by this particular row and column. Okay, so these are the indexes, the row and column. So let's try to build or compile and run our program, and we're getting this particular output right here, but we don't want that. Let's try to add a backslash n to add a new line every execution. So as you can see here, we have all the values coming from our array. So array, and then we have index 0, 0, so the value is 0 right there, as you can see. And then A0, 1, so the value is 1. A02 is 2. A03 is 3. And A1 and A10 is 4, and so on. So that's how you can use the multidimensional array inside our C program. Okay, and I think that's clear enough how you could iterate and modify your multidimensional array by using for loops. So again, if you have questions, you can ask questions in the comment section below. And again, once again, guys, thank you for watching and see you in the next video.